You are listening to the 2 and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
Well, I ordered T-shirts, but I grew out of them. Or no, sorry, they shrunk in the dryer.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
They shrunk in the dryer.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the 2 and Out CFL podcast.
Now they have to kick it out, and they do!
Every week, Travis Currah
Does anybody still care about this podcast?
and Brazilian Ty
Hunters are people too.
talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Are you kidding? This is unbelievable!
Ready, set, hunt!
And we are a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community-supported Brazilian Ty. Recording under a bit different circumstances today, and maybe for the foreseeable future. You are in beautiful British Columbia. How is it there?
It rains every day, so just as we expected.
Yeah.
I got up here on the 31st. Well, I got to McBride on the 30th, and I got to camp on the 30th. Or no, I got to McBride on the 29th, got to camp on the 30th. It has rained every day, literally. But not like, like it's like 4:30, 5 o'clock, like everything comes over the mountains and we get dumped on. And the fire,
Right.
the fire,
The risk.
the risk, yes,
Yeah.
it went up.
What?
Yeah. Hey, man, it's 2020.
I spent...
And then we drove past the sign yesterday, and it had gone back down to moderate. So,
okay. Yeah, because I spent the last week in Jasper, and I don't know how it is there. What's the mosquito situation like there? Do you notice that at all?
oh my God.
It's a game. Like, I've
thought
never
Manitoba was
seen
bad.
them.
I thought Manitoba was bad. This is awful.
I have never dealt with mosquitoes like this before. So you're tenting, and then, and you go outside to put your shoes on, and you think you have, 5 minutes
No.
to take in the fresh air before you put on the bug stuff for the day. No, they are relentless.
Yeah, and
Like-
the horse flies up here could literally carry a guy away. They're massive.
The natural dangers. I haven't talked to you for, I guess well over a month now. Have you been enjoying any sports since they've returned?
All of them?
I haven't watched a thing. I don't know what it is. I found it really tough to get excited for NBA and NHL playoffs. I know NBA's just getting underway there. Baseball's been kind of crazy. I got to ask you, are you right back into the gambling?
Allegedly.
How's it gone?
I don't want to talk about it.
I was going to say, what's the strategy? You probably went all in on your Oilers, and you shouldn't bet on your own team, man.
And lost $300, yeah. Been betting a lot of puck lines because I'm figuring out there'll be lots of empty net goals, and
Yeah.
then Toronto comes back and ties it. It's great. But hey, the Leafs didn't make the playoffs, and they didn't win the first overall pick, so all is right with the world.
Yeah, so maybe 2020 is okay after all.
Yeah, everything's returning to the mean.
In the Huddle with Currah and Ty on the 2 and Out podcast.
We should start off with this because a few weeks ago, this story ended up breaking after the last episode of the podcast when Andrew and Mike from the Turf District podcast were on the show. It was being talked about that U Sports would reverse its decision on allowing 25-year-olds to play. Well, originally they weren't going to let them play in 2021, and then a few days after the episode, they did decide, yes, there will be a one-time exception, and 25-year-olds will be allowed to play in 2021. This is unprecedented. I know everybody's kind of flying off the seat of their pants right now, but I'm glad that they made this decision.
Well, and it's no fault of their own why the football season isn't going to go, and why should they be punished for something that they have zero control over?
Yeah,
you should be able to finish your U Sports career and, either move on and keep pursuing a career in football, or, they're in school, and if they're going to be in school anyway, and with U Sports, I feel like they're actually student athletes, unlike the NCAA, which we'll get into.
That makes sense.
We're here in U Sport, where student athletes are actually students. If they, especially if guys that are on a scholarship, and all of a sudden their last year of eligibility is no good, well then how do you traverse that scholarship, decisions and stuff like that? It just makes it easier for everybody. It's no fault of anybody, this whole thing. So I mean, I figured this was going to happen. I was kind of surprised when they said that they weren't going to let them, and it just kind of took me by surprise. And I kind of figured this was going to happen eventually. Once, I don't want to say cooler heads prevail, because I don't feel like it was a big fight for them to not get to play. But I think after they looked at it and did a pros and cons list, like a lot of people do, it just makes sense to let them finish.
And to be fair, I have heard both sides of the story, because then there are the young players coming in to school where, somebody who's already played 4 years gets to play one more, while the young guys, their start sort of gets delayed a little bit. This just sets everything back, and I don't know what else you could have done. I do think it's the best solution.
It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. So, and you do this, and those kids that are the freshmen that are coming in, sure, they're not going to get the playing time if they have a lot of older guys on their roster, but that also gives them a year to learn the system and become, and it's going to reveal a lot of guys' character, right? If guys are not going to be team players and pout and because they're not getting playing time because somebody who's in their last year is getting it because of this decision to reverse the eligibility, that can become a problem. But if they're going to be, like, for example, we saw it with the New York Rangers, if they're going to be a Henrik Lundqvist and be totally okay with the decision and support their teammates and be on the sidelines and be a cheerleader for their team, then that shows what kind of person they are. And and what kind of teammate they can be.
And the guys in the last year of their eligibility, it's almost like more's on the line for them, because it can be big when it comes to their prospects.
Especially if they play for Laval. I mean, you don't want to miss those paychecks.
Speaking of Laval, there is a chance that they will be playing football in Quebec. Now, they have a little under 3 weeks to make a decision here, but the fact that it's being talked about there, it's kind of surprising to me.
And we're also talking about the province that sent kids back to school, and then were surprised when there was cases and had to send kids home. I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I don't see it happening either, but it is being talked about. And I don't see it happening either, because the Canadian Junior Football League has canceled this season as well. And you mentioned it, as far as NCAA goes, the Pac-12 and the Big Ten have canceled. I've heard
Big Ten football sucks anyway.
I've heard that a couple of the teams have inquired or maybe have talked about going to another conference to play football.
So we are about to see the beginning of the end of the NCAA.
Oh, well, what are you thinking here?
The Power Fives want nothing to do with the NCAA. And that's been known for years. You got the Pac-12, the Big Ten, the Big 12, the ACC, and the SEC. They don't want anything to do with the NCAA. They want to be able to make money, and if they can pay their players and give them perks, and they're not under NCAA rule, the recruiting becomes a lot easier. Sure, it'll damage the mid-majors, But I mean, those mid-major schools don't make the playoffs anyway, unless you're UCF and you think you're a national champion, but it's just delusions of grandeur. The SEC claims they're going to play this year. And I mean, you look at the states that are in the SEC, not a surprise. And I'm a Gators fan, man.
Yeah.
And like, I think it was, I want to say it was the MAC, or it might have been the Big 12, or one of the conferences had a vote, and it was two said they wanted to play, and 12 said they didn't. So there's two teams that, if a conference, the SEC, they could start picking, if teams want to play from these other Power 5 conferences, they'd be stupid to not try to get them in there. Like, the SEC could be all we get for college football this year, and if it's the only game on, I mean, the money that they could make from the TV and all that stuff, and it'd be unreal. I also think that, they, like I said, the Power Fives want nothing to do with the NCAA anymore, and that's been known for years. And when you think about it, the NCAA is just a bunch of crooks anyway, and it's all a joke. And these Power 5 conferences are the only conferences that make the playoffs.
Right. Yeah.
So what are we doing? Like, I mean, I get it. The NCAA tries to even the playing field and stuff, but you look at schools like Bama. Winning begets winning. We can make fun and make the joke that it's easy to win when you pay your players, blah blah blah. Yeah, but you get a couple good guys and you win. You get a reputation and guys keep wanting to come there, and then you coach first round draft picks, and you get guys to go on. They had like 8 first round draft picks last year.
It's crazy,
right? Like, it's nuts. So I can see the Power Fives leaving the NCAA and doing their own thing, and this is just going to. I think this is the start of the end, because not all the teams are going to play, but the SEC is pretty adamant that they can get this done. I don't know how. I think it's going to end up like Major League Baseball. We're going to have a crap load of tests or positive tests, but I mean, if there's football on TV, I'm going to watch it. I also don't think the NFL is going to get very far with their model either. But
I think they sort of ignored everything until the very last minute, and that's what's happening.
It almost sounds like a certain administration down there.
Oh, yeah. It's fascinating to me to see how this is going to affect drafts for the next 3 or 4 years. Javon Holland in the Pac-12 is projected to be the first round pick, and he might. Well, I don't know. What does this do? Some of these schools have said they're going to try to play in the spring, but what does this do going forward? And he's a Canadian, and he probably would be able to come to the CFL at any time at this point, it's all if we even have a league in 2021. Everything is so uncertain right now, but what does this do for any of these guys, whether they're going to be drafted in the NFL or come play in Canada? I don't know what's in store for them.
Well, I was going to ask, like, if there's no NFL season or they can't get it done, how do you do a draft? But then I remember after the lockout, they did it anyway in the NHL, right? It still happened. So you had 2 draft classes coming in the same year.
Right.
I don't know.
Maybe that happened.
That's a possibility, but I just feel like, not playing football for an entire year, I don't know how much the teams would want to get a draft in. I mean, down in the States, you can do workouts and everything. Like, people just don't care. And they basically do whatever they want right now. So, I mean, you could do workouts and get guys together and everything, but, not seeing them at game speed, that makes it really hard to draft. Unless they do a lottery, and whoever gets that first overall pick, they're taking Trevor Lawrence, and then it's just a trickle down from there. But other than that, I don't know how you do it. If you're a team, it'd be really tough to make those decisions.
Some CFL names that we know, including Kerry Joseph, Grey Cup champ with the Riders in 2007, has a coaching gig with the Seattle Seahawks, and Henry Burris has a gig with the Chicago Bears. You were not able to be on the show when we talked about Hank the Shank, as you like to call him.
That should mean that Mitchell Trubisky gets way better, right? The NFL's Matt Nichols. He's the second coming of Trent Dilfer.
Yeah. Henry goes into the Hall of Fame. You weren't on that episode.
No.
I bet that's the biggest topic you've wanted to talk about for the past 3 or 4 weeks.
No, I'm okay with it. I've come to grips with it. It's whatever.
You can't deny it.
Well, I can deny it all I want, but nobody's going to listen.
That's true.
It's just like at work. I can bitch and moan all I want, but it just falls on deaf ears.
Yeah, it's like the weather. It's like the gas prices. It's like taxes.
Oh, man.
Just whine about them all we want. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers have unveiled their Grey Cup rings. They did that last week. We saw...
How many different
Nick
sizes
Dembski.
did Andrew Harris have to give?
Andrew Harris, Nick Dembski with these rings. They're pretty slick, man. They're pretty slick. It still feels like, well, that was the last CFL game we watched, and it's coming on, almost a year ago, 9 months ago, whatever it was. It feels like forever since that game happened. So it's nice to see some championship bling for the Blue Bombers, which they haven't seen for nearly 30 years. They look pretty good.
No, they look really nice, and not like super gaudy.
Yeah, some of the recent rings.
Yeah, they're kind of
Like,
understated.
what are you gonna do with that?
Don't get me wrong. There's a crap load of diamonds and a huge. I get it. It's a championship ring, but it's not over the top. I don't think. When I think it was Hockey in Canada was in Lloyd, and I got to meet Marty McSorley, and his one finger is 3 of mine put together. Because they've been his hands have been broken so many times, I'm sure, and his nose is off to the side. But I got to I asked him about his ring. He's like, "Would you want to try it on?" I'm like, yeah. And
wow,
there's nothing to them, right? This was, I think it was
the 80s ones.
I think it was the 87 Cup. I think I can't remember which one it was, but they're heavier than hell. But however, just some diamonds, something that represents the 16 wins it took, and some score from a game that meant something. That was it. Now, and as the years go on, they just get bigger and bigger and worse and worse. And then the Bombers, it's big. There's lots of diamonds, but I mean, it's nothing out of the ordinary when it comes to a championship ring. They didn't try to go above and beyond anything.
Yeah, I know some were underwhelmed by it, but I don't think it needs to be the craziest design like we're seeing in other championships happening every single year. They just get crazy.
It's not going to hold a candle to my fantasy hockey ring whenever I order it. But I mean,
you got to win
nice.
first.
I did in 2017.
Oh, you're gonna order one for a 3-year-old championship?
Well, I ordered T-shirts, but I grew out of them. Or no, sorry, they shrunk in the dryer.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah. They shrunk in the dryer.
Because I'm a degenerate, and I put all of my clothes in the dryer. I hang dry nothing, except my button-downs.
Before we talk about the season that might never be, this episode of Two and Out is brought to you by Park Power, a provider of electricity and natural gas in Alberta that offers low rates, awesome service, and profit sharing with local charities. in the province. You get to choose who you buy your energy from. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. If you choose Park Power, your money stays here. Plus, Park Power shares its profits with local not-for-profits that are working to make a difference for their communities. Shopping local is very important to Park Power's owner, Chris Kozowski, and we love local here at the Alberta Podcast Network. So, of course, it's a great fit. Learn more about Park Power at parkpower.ca. Dave Naylor did a great job earlier this week basically outlining what needs to happen for a 2020 season to happen in the CFL. And somehow and some way, there's a sliver of hope that we're going to be seeing some games. And you remember the original deadline to get everything figured out was July 23rd.
Yeah.
If you look at the calendar, that was a while ago.
July 23rd. Let me just take a quick boo here.
Almost a month ago.
Yeah, I was at Neighbor's Pub pumping $40 into the jukebox after slow pitch. It was a Thursday night. And we had news.
That's a pretty solid memory you have there.
Oh, that week it was. Oh my God. Well, I'll tell you after. Mind you, it's the perfect. It's the perfect Brazilian Thai week, but we don't need to. People don't need to hear it.
That's why you're in BC working. We'll just say that.
That's so. Yeah.
So. I know you keep saying the clock is ticking, the clock is ticking, but somehow here we are, middle of August, and there's still somehow hope that there'll be basically a 6-game season, and we'll have playoffs and have a Grey Cup, and Winnipeg being the hub city. You have to think. I don't know. Would it have to happen by the end of this weekend or the end of next weekend? What is it? Because there was a date that was flying around a couple of weeks ago saying that looks like teams are going to arrive in Winnipeg September 14th. And then that kind of just went out the window. A lot needs to happen before there's a training camp or teams start arriving in Winnipeg and all of that stuff. We keep hearing it's crunch time, but when is the actual crunch time? It doesn't seem like anybody knows.
It's like watching the Blue Jays the last 2 years and Mike Wilner saying it's still early. Like, no, Mike, it's the first weekend of June and they're 20 games back. It's over. I, as a Jays fan, a Rider fan, an Oiler fan, hope springs eternal at the start of the year.
Oh, yeah.
And then after a week, reality sets in. If you're lucky, it's a week.
And then you're doing rider math, all of the scenarios to get into the playoffs or a home playoff game.
You start looking at the schedule, loss, maybe a win. And then Labor Day, so that you circle that on the calendar. Yeah. I know I don't want to say I don't care. I just want them to make a decision, and I get waiting. I totally do. We've seen it with other leagues, waiting as long as they possibly could before they say no, we can't do this.
Yeah.
But at some point, is a 6-game season a viable option? Like, does that make any sense?
Is it worth it?
Like, does it make any sense? To me, it's not like. Competitively, like it's not a route I'd want to go. Either play everybody once or you don't do it. And if that means
if you're going to do,
you're not going to have fans in the stands. So what does it matter if we have a Grey Cup in December this year?
Well, it's in Winnipeg.
Wear a sweater.
Yeah, I don't know how many players we're going to see opt out anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the other issue, right?
Because a lot of guys, they've had to go and most of the guys in the CFL, they have backup plans. They've got an education. They're playing football until they can move on to their next career, right? Yeah. And even Delvin Breaux has said, if we're going to go to Winnipeg for 6 games, I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
And he's one of the defensive stars for the Ticats. Brandon Banks made some tweets, and these guys are getting attacked.
Yeah, because people are idiots. You're going to ask a player to go, so they got to show up 2 weeks early.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to self-isolate.
They got to isolate at home first, too.
Yeah, but then when they come into the country, they got to do 2 weeks.
Yep.
Test, do some kind of training camp. And if you're only playing 6 games, you're only going to get paid a third of your salary.
Yep.
And then you're going to pay taxes on that, fine, and then, all the other stuff you got to do with it. Why? There's no way, no. It's not worth it. I don't think. And especially being away and you don't know, especially with what we're dealing with right now in the world.
Oh yeah.
Wouldn't it just be safer to stay at home?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to make money, I don't get the point.
There's a lot that needs to be figured out, and a lot of it has to do with the CBA as well.
Oh.
Which this is becoming sad.
It's comical. It's like a dark comedy.
The way that it was dealt with last time, there were some dirty moves pulled by the league. And they're trying to pull dirty moves, it looks like, to me, again.
Just like Major League Baseball did.
There's just a horrible relationship between the PA and the league. There's horrible communication from all sides. That needs to be fixed.
Yep.
Fast. I can't see how they can figure that. Almost seems like a bigger hurdle than the government giving them money and Health Canada approving the whole plan.
Yeah. And, like you said, trying to pull the wool over the Players Association's eyes and kind of getting some dirty dealings in there. If they're not going to deal in good faith over the CBA, why would the Players Association want to ratify anything right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a feeling that there might be a coup coming. Something's going to go down here, and I hate to say it, but Ambrosie's going to be the one that's going to have to take the fall. Even and I know I go to bat for Gary Bettman because he does what the owners tell him to do, and that's right. That's what commissioners do. But they also become fall guys for the league.
They do,
and I think the players have soured on Ambrosie. And
the fans have too.
How the turntables.
Yeah,
not even a laugh.
He started off.
I pull out an Office reference and I get nothing. You of all people.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
I'm sorry. I honestly did not think it was intentional. And am I surprised? Are you surprised? Now I'm impressed.
Yes, thank you.
So well done.
That's what she said.
There we go.
We're going to have to elk that one out.
This, I don't know if, I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert on CFL commissioners and their history in the league, but he started off as wildly popular with the fans, and that seems to have, you're right, really taken a turn here.
I think a lot of that had to do with Jeffrey Orridge, though, too.
Right, because he wasn't popular at all.
No.
And he didn't have Ambrosie didn't have the highest bar to live up to. So he came in and it seemed open with the fans and engaging with the fans. And I guess he was visible. So that was a big thing that people...
And he didn't get lawyer speak.
Right.
For the most part.
Right.
At the start.
Yeah, and then the more you listen to the state of the leagues and things like that, it's all political stuff.
Yep.
And talking buzzwords, and that's just the way it goes. That's how things operate here. But the communication, yeah, absolutely, cliches nonstop. So the communication with the fans too. I know once in a while we get a statement that's very vague, and we kind of have to read between the lines here. And I get not negotiating in public here. Maybe they're just kind of waiting on the government and what kind of money they can get here.
Well, if I know one thing, it's that government decisions and red tape and bureaucracy move real fast. So
yeah.
So who knows? I am not holding out a lot of hope for anything right now.
Yeah, there's still a sliver of hope. It looked like the government sort of said, "Yeah, we'll give you $30 million, but it's gonna have it's like on a credit card with a pretty crappy interest rate."
Well, then the CFL will just take out a line of credit, pay off the loan, and then get the lower interest rate on the line of credit. Couldn't you just do that?
Yeah, take out a consolidation loan.
Yeah.
There we go. Take out a loan from MLSE. There you go.
MLSE could just buy the league, I think.
Yeah. I mean, they probably have more money in the green than the government. So.
Call the Rock.
Why not?
Like,
he put $15 million into the XFL.
And I was listening to Fighter and the Kid today with Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen, who's on a hiatus right now. But they said that he might also have to pay the grievances. So it's like $15 million to purchase the league, and then he's still going to have to pay out all these other people.
Wow.
With all the grievances that were filed over paychecks and stuff.
So he's pretty serious about this thing.
Well, so you get the XFL, and then all of a sudden the Power 5 leave the NCAA. Now you got two leagues that can pay guys in the off season of the NFL. Now what? It's going to make stuff pretty interesting.
I don't know if you would call that a conspiracy, but I like it.
Hey, I'm all above board, man. I don't go into conspiracy theories. Except for 1984, the frozen envelope. I'll believe that to the day I die. And that Shawn Michaels knew. He knew what was going on.
Yeah, 100%.
There's no way 100%. He didn't. 100%.
I agree with you there.
Brett screwed Brett. No. I don't believe that for a second.
Now, if I were in the same room as you, I'd totally behind the shadows, Bret Hart knock you out.
Naked? You'd have to be
Wrestling
naked.
With shadows.
You'd have to be naked.
It'd be full Borat fight at the end of the movie. So it's a waiting game. I guess that's where we're at right now. The CFL needs money from the government. They need to have their Hub City Winnipeg plan approved by Health Canada. I honestly think that one's not a problem. It does look like their plan is pretty rock solid, with all the testing that goes into it and getting everybody to Winnipeg, being there, and they've got the facility to house the league and have the games and everything. So I don't think that's a problem. The problem is getting the money and getting this CBA done. So we wait. Here we are waiting again.
Just like me waiting for my dad to come home from getting smokes.
Ty.
It's been a month.
A month?
It's been a month since we've talked. You thought I wasn't going to get something like that in?
Yeah, you haven't had any...
keep you on your toes.
Absentee dad jokes. Brazilian Ty, wishing you a happy birthday this week.
Oh, thank you, sir.
You're in camp, right? So
yeah, it's not a dry camp, though.
Oh! So do they have like a a bar there? Do you have to leave or what?
No, we're only 10, 15 minutes out of town.
Oh, okay.
We can drink in our rooms, but that's just depressing to drink in my room by myself.
Oh, you got to do what you got to do.
Well, no, we went into town on Saturday night.
Oh, okay.
And Sunday, I only had 6 beer, but they were draft. And I got home, we got back to camp and raided the lunchroom. So I was up to 1:30 eating cookies. And
yes, never change.
And watching Northwoods Law.
Oh, that's a great show, by the way.
It's my new favorite.
I can't turn it on because then I cannot turn it off.
Yeah, it's like the Weather Network, too. I know what's going to happen every 10 minutes. They're going to show the local forecast. But it's the snippets in between.
Ty, I had my physical. And
was it a complete physical?
No, it was not complete.
Oh.
I am not quite at that age yet, I don't think. Dude, my cholesterol, my blood sugar, it's all good. And then the doctor pointed to the sheet at the top, and he wanted to make sure that it was my name. I'm like, yep, that's my name, baby.
Oh, wow. My theory is don't go to the doctor. Nothing's wrong with you.
Yeah, I know. You don't know what's wrong with you. There's nothing to worry about. Yep. I totally agree with you there. We give the worst advice on this show.
Yeah. Isn't that? I mean, I don't know. I made some bad decisions in July.
You've turned it around?
Well, I had to come to camp, so I had to figure something out.
New month, new Ty. All right, buddy.
For now.
We're a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. Since hockey's back on, we'll point you in the direction of the Fourth Line Podcast, grinding out their opinions every single show. They were talking about Bobby Mack from TSN retiring. I guess it's a semi-retirement.
Yeah.
For Bobby Mack. He'll still be doing the World Juniors. Who knows what's happening with those this year? They were going to be in Alberta. Mm-hmm. So check out the Fourth Line Podcast and all the great shows in the Alberta Podcast Network at albertapodcastnetwork.com. We'll talk to you soon. Who knows what's going to happen between now and then, but we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.